All right, let's talk a little bit more about slope. We often will hear slope talked about as a rate. I want to talk about what we mean by that. A rate is just a comparison between a ratio between two quantities measured in different units. Probably the easiest rate to think of is we talk about the car. How fast is the car going? We would measure that in miles per hour. And we could calculate it as a fraction. We might write it as, like this, or miles per hour or something like that. But it's just a relationship or between the number of miles that you are traveling in the car and the amount of time that passes by. We could keep track of it in a table. Miles and hours, right? Say you're traveling at 55 miles per hour, then it's 55 miles to 1 hour, 110 miles to 2 hours, 165 miles to 3 hours. We could write this particular ratio as miles to hours like this and make it 55 to 1 like that, or the other way around. Hours to miles, 1 to 55. So there's lots of different ways that we can write that rate. Well, let's focus on this one right here, writing it as a fraction. So we would write that as 55 miles to 1 hour. So let's go back and look at and that means that for every 1 hour of travel, so it's a unit rate, every 1 hour of travel, you travel 55 miles. Or for every 55 miles you travel, you've been on the road for 1 hour. Well, we can look at our slope the same way. We've talked about slope as change in y over change in x, or how far up the graph moves compared to how far over it moves. And we could write that also, like this. So, for example, this line here, for every 1 unit we move over, we move 2 units up. For 1 unit over, 2 units up. 1 unit over, 2 units up. And by the way, just as a reminder, when I draw the little triangles in, I'm not saying that as we travel along the line, we're making these little stair-step moves going over and up and over and up and over and up. I'm just using the triangles as an illustration to show when we travel from point to point on this line, from here to here, for example, we're 1 unit further to the right and we're 2 units up. And the triangle just illustrates that. It makes it so you can easily count the spaces and see it. We're not actually traveling in this zigzag pattern. If we were on the line, we are on the line. We're traveling up and down the line. Okay? For this one here, it's 3, 2. So for every 3 units over we travel, we end up 2 units higher up. For every 3 units over, it's 2 units up. Okay? So the rate is in units of vertical change per every unit of horizontal change, if I want to write it as a unit rate. So for example, this one here would be 2 to 1, or 2 units of upward movement for every 1 unit forward. Or here, we could write this, if we wanted to write it as a unit rate, let's see, it would be 2 units of upward movement for every 3 units of forward movement, and that actually is your unit rate right there. 2/3, look here, 2/3, 4/3, 6/3, which is 2. So for every unit we go forward, we travel 2/3 up. Okay. So a rate, we're just comparing 2 changing quantities. The 2 changing quantities here are vertical movement and horizontal movement. And so we can say that there is so much vertical movement for every unit of horizontal movement, and that's what we call slope. So much vertical movement for every unit of horizontal movement, slope. And that slope is a rate.